Stablecoins have been the big focus for like the last 12 or 24 months now because stablecoins just continue to go insane. We can actually see on my screen right now, we have just in Bitwise says stablecoins are going parabolic. If we actually look at this, and let me just open this up in a new tab just so that you guys can actually see this, right? So here we have on the left side, stablecoin market capitalization and then stablecoin transactions on the right side. If we look at this, since Q1 of 2020, when this started to get tracked, we could see how fast from Q1 of 2020 into roughly like Q3 of 2021, how fast stablecoin market capitalization grew, but also even transactions. I mean, the transactions didn't really go insane until like 2024. 2024 is when the stablecoin market just went insane. Q2 of this year alone recorded almost $8 trillion in stablecoin transactions. Q1 was almost $7 trillion. And then Q4 of 2024 was about almost $5 trillion. If we're thinking about how insane stablecoins actually are right now, they are becoming so big to the point where we can almost classify stablecoins as a significant piece of the global financial system. Now, with that becomes a big problem. And what is that big problem? Well, it's the big banks. Big banks are not going to ignore this. They are going to focus on the stablecoin market. This puts a big target on stablecoins. And when we think about this, with regulations, starting to become a thing around stablecoins, banks have a lot of ammunition to use against the stablecoin market. And this is exactly why we look at players like Ripple and Circle that are fully compliant. They're working with regulators. They're trying to make sure that they're doing everything in their power to be a legitimate stablecoin issuer, working with the biggest names out there, making sure that they have those licenses in place because they're going to need it, because the big banks are fearful right now. And we'll talk about that here in a moment. But if we look at the stablecoin market, $250+ billion in market cap, almost $3 trillion in monthly transfer volume. Stablecoins have now hit mainstream. They are going parabolic. I agree with Bitwise. They are at this point a legitimate financial tool that you could utilize for payments, transactions. You could accept it as a means of payment. I mean, they are now a legitimate piece of the financial system. And when we think about that, right, this market cap is actually off. The total market cap here is $270+ billion. And this has quickly grown in just the last like 3 months. And regulations are just going to accelerate this more and more and more. Regulations are truly the spark that lights the flame, and it's going to burn red hot towards the end of this year. You're going to see the stablecoin market erupt even bigger than it already has. Now, on top of that, RLUSD. So over the last like 5 days, we've been seeing more and more of these heavy mints of like 20+ million RLUSD being minted. And you might be saying, well, it's minted at the, Ethereum treasury. So this is only for like ETH. Yeah, you could easily say that, but it's the fact that RLUSD just continues to grow more and more and more, and it's starting to become a much bigger piece of the market. In fact, Ripple recently just put out a report regarding RLUSD, and it's titled, "The demand for faster, more transparent, and affordable payments is growing, but cross-border transactions remain slow, costly, and complex. Stablecoins issued on the XRP ledger, like RLUSD, are changing that by enabling faster payments, lower fees, and greater access. Learn more about how stablecoins are reshaping global payments and how Ripple payments can help you navigate cross-border payments with speed and transparency." When we think about this, okay, this is what I mean, right? Like, we are looking at RLUSD being issued out on Ethereum. There's the EVM sidechain on the XRP ledger, which is a big enabler of value to be transacted from Ethereum onto the XRP ledger. But also, if we're thinking about Ethereum, as more and more stablecoin initiatives start to scale on ETH, they're going to switch over. They're going to have to, because Ethereum is not capable of extremely scalable use cases. It's just not. We've talked about this on multiple occasions. But when we're thinking about RLUSD, it's the main focus of it becoming so big now to the point where almost everyone is noticing how fast this is accelerating. This is top cross-border and stablecoin payment providers in 2025. In today's hyper-connected economy, the demand for fast, affordable, and transparent payment solutions has never been greater. From corporate treasury and global supply chains to international freelancers and e-commerce, millions of businesses and individuals rely on cross-border transactions every single day. Unfortunately, sending and receiving money remains slow, costly, and fraught with regulatory and infrastructure challenges. Traditional payment rails frequently fall short and have inevitably, albeit inadvertently, made way for a new era of finance. Enter stablecoins, blockchain networks, and fintech providers. These innovations offer real-time settlement, lower fees, and expansive access. Interesting. I don't see Ripple mentioning banks here. That's because banks are old news, and now they're starting to realize how big this space is becoming, and they are on the offense, and I'll talk about that. But here we have why stablecoins are reshaping cross-border payments in 2025. Stablecoins are digital assets minted and stored on the blockchain that are designed to maintain a stable value by pegging its worth to a reserve asset. They are most commonly fiat-backed stablecoins in which the value is pegged to a fiat currency like the US dollar or even a euro. Because of this, they can offer greater price stability than other types of cryptocurrencies, making them an ideal entry point into the blockchain ecosystem for more risk-averse financial institutions. And this is what we could see happening in the cross-border payments by utilizing stablecoins, providing currency stability and access to digital dollars, enabling instant global settlement, reducing remittances and business transaction costs, and operating 24/7 across borders. Stablecoins like USDC, USDT, RLUSD, and newer region-specific tokens are being integrated into wallets and payment platforms worldwide, especially where access to the US dollar is limited and there is greater currency volatility. And when we think about this, right, we look at how stablecoins are utilized around the world, specifically for even business payouts. Stablecoins can differ from or for myriad reasons, including market availability related to regulation and payment systems, reserve practices, liquidity use cases, blockchains support it as well. And we have a few of the examples down here as well. This is more so in the Latin areas, Africa, and even parts of Asia. They should look for a stablecoin payment provider that can support on-ramps and off-ramps in those markets. Alternatively, a business using stablecoins for corporate treasury needs to ensure that the provider offers transparency of reserves and compliance-focused transactions. And here we have the top stablecoin and cross-border payment providers reshaping how businesses send payouts to the US and global corridors in 2025. RLUSD, and we can see all of the supported third-party payouts backed by reserves, all that kind of stuff. We also have Circle, then we have Tether as well, and then we have these providers are helping unlock fast, stable, and low-cost payment flows where traditional banks, there it is, traditional banks fall short. Traditional finance is integrating stablecoins, and yeah, we're starting to see more and more players integrating stablecoins within their businesses. We look at Visa, we look at MasterCard, we look at WorldPay. All of these players are now tapping into stablecoins, and it's because of what they provide. And this is why when we think about how big stablecoins are becoming, they're far too big to ignore. Then we enter BPI. So Bank Policy Institute, they put out a report back in 2022, and they said crypto is a Ponzi scheme. You don't know the half of it. This is where they started to really target crypto in a big way. This is right after Luna. This is right before FTX. And they just continued to talk about this big Ponzi scheme. Now, what's crazy about this is if we look at the About section, this is their membership. It's all the big banks, all the major banks out there, even some lower tier banks as well. And then we also scroll down and we can see the board members, right? M&T Bank, Wells Fargo, Ali Financial, BMO Financial Group, BNY, Bank of America, all of these big banks. Jamie Dimon's on here, you name it. And even if we scroll down to like the BPI team, like Greg Bear, for an example, the CEO, just look at his resume. He's coming from a background at Bank of America, JP Morgan. I mean, these are big bankers. And the reason why I bring that up is because they were targeting crypto. They were calling it a Ponzi scheme. They were saying that it was this, that, whatever. And what's crazy about all of this is we go back to stablecoins. Why? Why are we bringing up BPI and stablecoins? Well, because of this. Paul Barron put out a report on this. Update, Ripple has banks on the ropes. BPI has just attempted to block Ripple's banking license. XRP RLUSD, let's remember who BPI represents, an industry lobbying group. BPI represents 42 of the largest US banks and acts as their policy advocate and lobbying organization. They argue that the public only had 2.5 weeks to review Ripple's application from July 16th to August 4th of this year, which is inadequate for such a novel banking application involving cryptocurrency activities. Regulatory uncertainty. The pushback suggests that the traditional banking industry views Ripple's crypto banking hybrid model as a potential problematic model, which could influence the OCC's decision making. And then when we look at the BPI's board, you have Jamie Dimon on here, you have Bank of America CEO, Wells Fargo CEO, and then you also have all of these others. Okay, why are they going after Ripple? Okay, well, we know Ripple just recently applied for the banking license. We know RLUSD is expanding rapidly. And we got to think about it like this. Ripple has their stablecoin. They have blockchain infrastructure tied to it, aka the XRP ledger. There's no competing with this. So the best way to go after this is by attacking it. We know Ripple and even XRP has been attacked for years. We talk about this even with the lawsuit. We, say that the lawsuit was a weaponized lawsuit to slow Ripple down because they were expanding way too fast. It's still a thing today. When we think about this, okay, what do these banks have to fear? Well, they're losing business. We know that stablecoins and these blockchain-based players can offer way more than what these big banks can offer. We are essentially stealing their clientele. We're taking dominance away from these big players. And it's at a time where all these big players want to launch their own stablecoin. They can't call it a stablecoin because they would need to adhere to the regulations around Genius Act. But we know that these are basically stablecoins. They're tokenized deposits, essentially. That's what they're calling them. But JP Morgan is trying to do this. We know Bank of America is also trying to do this. We heard this back in June, right? Bank of America's CEO says that the bank is developing a stablecoin both independently and in collaboration with industry partners. We know that those industry partners are basically banks because we even go back to May of this year. Major US banks, including JP Morgan Chase, Bank of America, Citigroup, and Wells Fargo are exploring a, issued joint crypto stablecoin. This is crazy, right? Because all of these big banks moving in on stablecoins at a time where Ripple is trying to apply for a banking license, and now we see the BPI, which is predominantly all big banks. I mean, listen, you look at the list here. These are all big banks. They're trying to slow Ripple down again. This is, it's crazy. It's like deja vu. We look at this and it's just like the lawsuit. They're trying to slow Ripple down. They're trying to, kill this in its path because they know that if Ripple gets this banking license, it's game over. It's game over. Already dominance has been usurped from these big banks. People are tapping into cross-border payments all day long. So when we think about this, we go back to what happened in July, right? In the month of July, 122 million RLUSD was minted. RLUSD continues to grow. We just hit 3 billion plus in monthly transfer volume. This is still a fresh stablecoin. We launched back in, December. $570 plus million tied to RLUSD already, 34,000 plus holders, $3 billion worth of monthly transfer volume, and stablecoins just continue to grow more and more and more. They're starting to become a dominant piece of the global financial system. They just made the 1% level on the M2 supply, right? Stablecoins now represent 1.1%. Banks are terrified. Banks are starting to shake right now because they know that crypto is the future. They know that this is going to continue to grow more and more, and it's going to usurp a ton of demand from the big banks because what banks are capable of doing, crypto-based players do it 10 times better and 10 times more efficient. And these crypto-based players are also not trying to get rich off of the retail users. These banks love retail users because they utilize us as money pits. They want to make money off of us. With crypto, the fees are so low. Settlement times are so fast. Transparency is there. The transactions are not failing. This is why the banks are terrified of what Ripple is doing. This is why we need to focus on what these big banks are doing right now. They're panicking. The big banks have been panicking. And they're only going to panic more and more and more. They're going to try to utilize regulators, these organizations, to slow things down. And this should show you how dominant Ripple actually is and how efficient their business model is. And these key pieces to the puzzle, right? XRP, the XRPL, RLUSD, all of these things are making Ripple a powerhouse in the financial space, which is terrifying the big banks. And with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys definitely leave a like, subscribe, turn notifications on because of more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord in the description below. And with that being said, guys, it's been Nick. Thanks for watching. Peace out.